Hi, this is Steve Farnsworth, and this is B2B Marketing Deep Technology, and it's brought to you by Impress Labs. I'm talking with my cohort here, Dave Richardson, who's founder of Impress Labs and also the managing partner in San Francisco. Hey, Dave, how you doing?
Very well, Steve. How are you?
Doing good. Dave and I have been talking a little bit about ROI. One of the conversations that we had come up was ROI can be, literally what dollars you put in versus what dollars you get out. And that's absolutely valid. Dave actually has some other thoughts about it. We thought we'd just kind of dig into it a little bit and kind of I'd like you to share a little bit about what your thinking is. So first of all, like when I asked you about, and this whole conversation started when I said, what is ROI? What's the ROI of communication to you? And you tell me a little bit about what you said. Can you kind of recap a little bit what you said?
Well, it's been one of those questions, Steve, that has been asked even ever since I actually came over here to the US 15 years ago and started working with you, and I found it really strange when I started looking around PR agencies, marketing agencies, and they were all talking about their ability to get results. They get results, and one of the things that you taught me when you made me read a book, I think it was Jack Trout's "Differentiate or Die." It was pretty funny to see all of these agencies that specialized in branding and positioning and differentiation, all with the same claim on their website, and the claim was that we get results. And I think we were guilty of that as well, with Positia when we were working back then. And then you start thinking about, what are...
So the agency, I was going to say, you're referring to an agency where you and I first met, back in 2000 or something like that. So.
Yeah, you haven't changed a bit, Steve, and I've just got older, grey hair and less hair actually. But so you've aged well, and
there you go.
You treat me well, but I don't look that way these days. But yeah, it just got me to ask ponder the question: what are results? And at the end of the day, a lot of agencies were talking about, well, I get results in the form of number of articles. I get a number of impressions, and then they start talking about advertising equivalent or opportunities to see. And the reality of the situation for me, ROI is the ability to impact a business in a specific way. And it comes back to, what's your end game? What are you trying to achieve? What is the investment that you're willing to put into that? What is your strategy to achieve that goal? But ultimately, have you achieved what you set out to achieve? And I know there are a lot of different factors and not just communications that play into this: product, sales channel, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But if you get it down in black and white, what is the end game? And then 6 months down the line at the end of the project, have you done that? Then that is a form of an ability to assess whether you've got the results that you want. At the end of the day, marketing communications is a tool. It is a business tool to help a company achieve its objectives. And so, when you talk about AVE or OTS, I mean, it's great to get these high figures and these high values, but how has it impacted your business?
And you mean that actually in terms of multiple? I mean, so you're delineating not just leads, which are important. I mean, moving the revenue dial, but you're talking about different levels of influencing the sales funnel too, right?
Well, absolutely. But you're hitting on another thing, which is a pet peeve of mine here. Marketing, sales, they don't really come together. But ROI for somebody in the sales channel is it, has it impacted my sales? If you're a CMO or if you're in charge of brand, is our sales your responsibility? So your understanding of ROI might be very different. Then if you bring in, and this is a dynamic that I've seen more and more in recent years, then you bring the CFO into the equation, and the CFO is there to make sure the finances of a company are in line. And so the CFO is going to go, I don't understand the ROI of some of this brand work that you've done. And ultimately, the president and CEO is going to probably listen to your CFO, and there's going to be this doubt as to what value the marketing efforts that you've actually put in place, unless, of course, the sales and marketing function are aligned. And, a vice president of sales is going to go into his board meeting or her board meeting, and she or he are going to say, here's my target. Here's what I'm going to do for you next quarter. What does a marketing VP do? What does a CMO do? Is that number their responsibility too? So, there is a question there that is being asked, particularly as more and more CFOs are getting into that equation. What is my ROI?
Well, you talk about something that's really, I think, really important that people don't do when we were looking for how we report back. We as marketers and communicators tend to use our own metrics, which may not be important to the C-level. And just the idea, the fact of, I think that people should do, if you're a senior marketer, you should go talk to the CFO and ask, and the CEO too. But the CFO is like, what's important to you? And obviously they're going to say, they're going to talk about final numbers, but they probably have a broader understanding. They look for more context. And so as a marketer, if you go and ask how a CFO wants to, what's important to them in terms of saying that you're doing your job, that you're getting a return on the investment, that having a conversation, understanding some of their needs might probably allow you as a communicator or marketer to figure out how to connect more and use that terminology, how to support numbers that are meaningful to them.
And then when you're talking about, you mentioned up front, we do a lot of deep tech. We're working within the semiconductor space, semiconductor manufacturing space, and you could be talking about a $3 million piece of equipment. Now, some of the work that you do from a PR perspective to help launch this product, to help continue the conversation about this product, may not be directly attributable to the sale at the end of the day. But thinking about ROI on the flip side of that, what would the cost of not doing something like that be if you weren't to go out and tell the marketplace that you've got this new piece of equipment, if you weren't to generate conversation and make sure that when somebody is in the process of making a purchase, your name, your brand, your equipment is thought of up front in the conversation. If you didn't do all this, what would happen to your business? So it's not just about ROI, it's about the risk associated with not doing anything as well. And I think that's something you need to take into consideration.
You talked about the Jack Trout book, and I think you're talking about Positioning Battle for Your Mind. I believe that's the one, Jack Trout, Al Reese book.
Yeah, there's another one. I think he did a second one in Differentiate or Die. I might be.
Yeah, well, they did that one too.
Yeah.
Do you think those books hold up in your mind?
I think that the dynamics may have changed, and again, it's dependent upon the business and the industry that you're serving. I think there are some very dynamic marketing industries. If you look in the consumer space, I think we've probably moved on, but the idea of differentiation is absolutely something that lives on today. And before you do any form of communicating, before you get involved in any of that, you need to figure out, okay, what space am I going to occupy in the consumer's mind or in my customer's mind? How am I going to differentiate my products, my brand, my company, my employees in their mind in a positive light? So I think you absolutely need to make evaluations on that, and then obviously create your marketing strategy to actually position yourself against your competition in a positive light. Having said that, there are industries and there are businesses where it's just volume, advertising in the consumer space, where it's mind grab, and it's not necessarily differentiation. It's just getting in the mind of the consumer at point of purchase. But yeah, it is absolutely still relevant. Yeah.
I'm curious, just talking about kind of how things are measured. You're in an interesting position. You guys are, while you're a multi-million-dollar agency, you're not an Edelman or those guys. Though I know you come up against them in business, new business, and I always think that you guys are probably when I look at like large agencies and how they, what they look to set for goals in terms of why they're being brought in and stuff like that, versus you guys are really accountable. And I'm kind of curious when you look at large, and I did not to mention names, but some of the other large agencies that you compete for on business, the difference is that my sense is you guys are more, I know that you personally make more, what you're, looking at the goal and really dialing down what that is for that measurement. And I don't see that necessarily in large agencies. Is your experience the same? And I'm not trying to blow smoke, but it seems like I think you guys are held more accountable for some reason that some big agencies aren't for some other reason I don't quite understand.
Yeah, you're opening up a can of worms that I could probably talk about this for a long time. But I don't see success as the number of publications we got into. I don't see success as to the number of eyes that see anything. I see success as to achieving the end game. And, we've had a lot of people come in and say, I want to launch this, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. And it's, when you're measuring ROI, it's basically, have you achieved your end game? And so go back to the beginning, look at what success looks like, or go to the end and look at what success looks like, and then build a plan around that. I don't tend to, I think that the big agencies, and I was speaking to one of the large agencies and the guy that heads up the technology division from one of the large agencies just recently. And it was really interesting to see the dynamic. Again, I'm probably going off topic a little bit right now, but the dynamic of where results come from. And I think that if you look at the likes of Edelman, Fleischmann, and companies such as that are making this transition, it used to be the advertising agencies would go off and they'd be the jockeys in charge of the race, if you like, and they'd just say, "Oh, let's do some PR. Let's just do some PR. Let's just do some PR." And I've seen this shift because I think the PR agencies are able to get some pretty decent results in terms of shaping perception, in terms of shifting brand. And now it's really interesting when you talk to these big agencies, they're all about driving brand. And in order for an Edelman or a Fleischmann to drive brand, they're going into these different areas such as creative, such as content, creative content, and they're really building a full service agency in and around a PR offering. And I think it's because the standing of PR in the last couple of years has been actually that's driving results at a really good cost basis. So that's an interesting dynamic.
It's funny you should say that. I for a lot of years, we saw as agents, as journalism and a lot of the niche publications collapsed. We saw a lot of agencies looking to try to make up additional revenue, and they brought in advertising or graphics or whatever. And it was always this kind of like cobbled on thing. And I think there's an interesting kind of irony from that is now that storytelling is so corporate storytelling is so important to a brand and all the ways that they communicate. Now you need to have all those elements in one place. It's kind of, I always kind of think of comms agencies have stumbled into that. Our background, I know that we always had that as part of something we were doing because we always use multiple ways. But now these agencies who've been trying to make more revenue actually can be storytellers and use all these components. And so it's been an interesting evolution to watch.
Yeah, I think from our perspective as well, myself and Martin have slightly different backgrounds, but if you see Martin in action and you see how good he is in a sales environment, my background was in publishing and then in sales. I think that stands us in good stead and probably stands us apart a little bit because we step back and we think how we're going to sell this thing. We don't necessarily think how we're going to market this thing. And I think that might be something that differentiates us away from the agencies because, at the end of the day, business is business. And, if you're dealing with public companies, you're talking about beating revenues quarter over quarter over quarter. Now, I go in and think, well, how am I going to do that? Where's my sales opportunity? What's the product that's going to give me my sales opportunity? What's the region that my sales opportunity exists in? Well, I've got to support my existing business over here, but I'm going to go and market over here. So I think, from that standpoint, that probably stands us in good stead and positions as well from an agency perspective. So, yeah.
I think on that word, I think we'll wrap it up. Dave, I'm here with Dave Richardson, a managing partner for San Francisco managing partner for San Francisco and a partner for the agency, Impress Labs. I'm Steve Farnsworth. Thanks for joining us in this B2B Marketing Deep Tech edition. Talk to you soon. Thanks for joining me, Dave.
Thanks, Steve. Have a great weekend. Cheers.